freewheeling cavalcade of circular motion, thus defined by the octagon table of double-wide mental introspection, and dedicated utilitarian outward thinking in defense of zero content. Translation: we ain't got nothing. Oh, hey folks, dude here. Coming again, an iteration of Dude After Dark. And of course, I'm now looking for something of which to speak on. No, I really just need to find file real fast and, it'll all make sense. So, thus we find ourselves looking at the usual goings on in Washington and spiel therein of, stupidity, thus enthralled by the media guys and some of the stuff that these guys are doing in politics right now is beyond the pale of blatant idiocy. So let me scroll on down here, get my news feed all set up. And usually what I'll do is I'll upload news stories, put it on my Facebook, and then I'll come back and do a, news and review kind of a thing. So I literally stack a bunch of stuff up. And then, of course, sometimes I really kind of bone myself because then I have a whole bunch of memes that I'm looking at going, well, I know I can't really put that one on there. And, that's just the way things are. So let me scroll, scrolly. Scroll. Okay. So look at things as it is. People coming in the room, good stuff like that there. I'm waiting on everybody to join up on that one. Hopefully this is now public and all the rest of the good stuff like that there. I usually do hit the public button. Hopefully it is the public button so everybody knows it is public. So let me make sure that I'm doing things correctly. Good stuff like that there. You know what? I'm actually gonna cheat a little bit here. So give me 1 second, and give me my lead, as it were. So let me go over here real fast, and go over here to me, and it looks like we are definitely doing live stuff on live stuff. Okay, so. Currently have nobody in the room. That's fine. I can work solo. That's not an issue. I don't have to have a grand audience of everybody going me. I can do stuff on my own. Okay. So scrolly. It is not this unit, but it could be potentially me pulling pictures off of this unit. So essentially, you know what? I think I'm going to do a mini knife blog. So there's a couple of lesser well-regarded knife makers, as it were. There's in the lower rung, obviously you're not talking about like the big names, but the stuff that was really like majorly huge back in like the 80s, 90s, the survival knives and all the rest of that good stuff like that there. Excuse me, Tigger juice, look at that. Tiggy juice. Anyway, so namesake being there, there was a number of knife companies that, while they weren't like the big names, in the surplus stores, they would have, pretty good amount of shelf space. So looking at things as it were, obviously I have spoken about this, in my knife blog videos previously. But like you had like Parker, Explorer, Valor, Fury, Frost. And, there was a number of other, Pakistani ones. The Pakistani knives really have dried up, but they used to be kind of a thing back in like, the 80s and 90s. They were kind of around. Were they really, really great knives? No, but they were cheap. So if you broke one, you really didn't truly cry. Now, today's namesake we're going to be speaking on is going to be the Fury/Valor knives. Namesake being is there is a couple of these guys, and they're really kind of unusual because if you looked at them, it was a steel blade with an ABS, and I do mean like, not the most sophisticated thermal, plastic or polymer, as it were, which was then cast in about the blade. So literally you had, essentially you had a blade bank with, holes through it. And then they put that in the mold, and then they squirted the plastic in around it, which then bonded to the blade. So you didn't have like your classic thing of you have, just an exposed steel blade with a handle on board. You literally had the handle formed into the blade itself. So there was minimal amount of steel actually being exposed. Obviously, you do all kinds of, crevices and crud and stuff could actually get into around the blade. So it's really not the most, exactly great design. Now there is some big names associated with it. There's a gentleman who was a major knife force in Japan named Tak Fukuta, Takfu um, Kata, I believe it was Tak Fukuta, and he was the major namesake of a lot of really kind of interesting knife designs. Now, on eBay, I am ridiculously all over the place for, oh wow, this looks really cool. I'd love to have one of these, and I should jump on board and snag one of these. Sometimes the guys that are selling them put the prices in such a realm of ridiculousness that you just look at the price and go, no, 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 not even no, but no. Case in point, this guy has, and I'm not going to show you like his seller name. So let's just do something a little silly here. Let's just show you the knife. Let's show you the knife first, which I can do. So let's just show you the knife first, and this one is actually a bigger version of the previous iteration. So it is, like basically a buoy. Now, very, very unusual knife design. You see, it does have like a ring there for your index finger. It has like a really massive choy. Hang on a second here. Let me try to keep myself honest. Has a really massive choice, so you can index your finger in there. It does have like a thumb groove on top, and then it does have like this kind of strange finger guard on there. Really, it kind of only does one thing good. The only downside is, of course, let me flip this around here real fast, and this is known as the Border Patrol. So it's the Fury from Japan, and it's called the Border Patrol. Now I do have that substantiated because there is a couple of these for sale. They actually did have the box that it came into, and it was called the Border Patrol. Now, like I said, I'm not going to show you the guy's name. I will show you the price he's asking for it on eBay. Yeah, most of the time these things sell. They normally sell for sub $100, and that's being generous. Sub $100. Now, like I said, I'm not going to show you the guy's name on eBay. I'm just not going to do that. But he does have 100% positive feedback for him, so he is actually a good egg to deal with, and he does have 7,578 responses. So obviously the guy is known reputable dealer. The price of business, though, is somewhat in the order of redonkulous. Okay, I'm not going to spend $500 for anything but the most ridiculously obscure and most unbelievably gotta have it ever. And probably it's going to go bang and not stick, because I'm probably going to say it's a pew pew and not a stick stick. Now, I did have opportunity for me to scrounge around on eBay, and I've seen them around, and I've seen them pop up in other places, and another one popped up, and I didn't get a chance to bid on it because obviously it was one of these ones pricing that was really really good, so I didn't get that one. However, something else popped up, and I did get this one. So it is the Border Patrol knife. It is a very strange bird. It is partially serrated. You notice you don't see that really so much on the other side, but there is a number of versions of this. There's one that has basically a plain edge all the way through. This one, of course, being serrated for the bottom portion of it. And like I said about the handle design, okay, you look at the handle, and it is really just it's a an index finger ring. Okay, so you're not gonna go forward and get into the blade on this, and that's physically impossible. Also, you do have the secondary guard up on top blocking your thumb. Downside, it's really a strange angle to hold it like this. Other major problem is the balance point is like it's like so far ahead of the guard that there's really no good natural balance on it. As soon as you put your finger on there, it's so beyond blade heavy. It is redonkulous. Now, the steel on this is typically a 440. So I would say this is probably a 440A. It's not going to be the best steel. It's not going to be the worst steel. It really does have an kind of unusual finish on it. Most of the time you had these guys when you're encountering them, it's actually pretty brightly polished. This one almost looks like it's been like stonewashed and they did like a slight buff on it. So it's actually a very muted brushed finish. Uh, it's duller than wet spaghetti. So don't even worry about that one. This one's going to be a wall hanger, so I'm obviously not going to touch up the edge. And there is no marks on the handle on this side, which is kind of weird because it's an indexing pad for your thumb to then hold the blade thusly. Obviously, you're not going to override the finger, and obviously, you're not going to ride the thumb. So you're pretty well locked in there. But it's really not it's kind of a strange blade to try to index. It really doesn't index well in this regard. Then, of course, your edge in, which is probably something you don't want, except for when you're maybe holding it like this. Then you do have a positive grip on board. If you're engaging anybody and they're holding a knife edge down and they're like, they don't know what they're doing. If they're holding a knife edge up, they do. Okay. If you ever encounter somebody and they're getting into a knife fight with you and they're edge up, they're going to go with a power stroke and you're going to get cut from giblets to, nabobs, and it's not going to be so good. Anyway, so looking at stuff as it is, there is no marks on this thumb pad. On the secondary thumb pad on the passenger side of the item, it merely says Fury, and it's actually kind of really hard to focus up on, but hopefully it kind of works. Maybe throw a little light on the subject here. Hang on a second. Let me cheat. Put this on the low range. Yeah, I think I can cheat like this. So essentially, it says Fury and Pat penned Japan. That's literally all it says. And then it has the kind of weird A that Fury used. It almost looks like an anarchy symbol. Martina Sasquatch, no, you didn't miss much, dude. You're kind of coming in right in the middle of it. So there is no real markings on here to say, yeah, it's a model, blah, 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 and it's the Vorpal blade of so and so. No, there's none of that stuff on there, okay? Essentially, it just says Fury, Pat penned, Japan. Now, there is a Valor version of this, and it doesn't have anything on there, but it just says Pat penned. So there's a couple versions of this that was made for a couple knife companies. Which one are you talking about? Well, they all probably were made in Japan. The sheath is obviously also still ABS. So same crap, kind of a plastic. They used it in cars for a while. It really, truly is not a good long use plastic because it gets brittle. It's not the strongest. It actually is very easy. You can actually almost put nicks and scratches and stuff with your fingernail. Okay, it's really not the best thermoplastic. It does have a thong hole. It has numerous lashing holes on it. And in terms of the actual securing of the blade, well, you stick the blade in there and it's kind of does it really want to go? Does it really, really, really want to go? It's in there and it's kind of a sloppy, floppy finish. Would I really ever fly this thing like this? No. It does actually also have a latch on board with, basically just a snap. And it literally is just a strip of, canvas going around it or, nylon version therein. Most times, if you're going to be encountering somebody and you want to be wearing it on your LBE, read like your gear, you're probably going to flip it around in such a way that you have the safety latch removed because, you don't really want the safety latch on there if you need to engage. If you're going to engage anybody, you want to have it someplace where it's easy to get back. So you're engaging somebody with your primary stuff. You have this on your LBE. That's how you handle that one. It's locked on into your LBE. Well, if you have it like this, you then have to go down and then you have to engage. And I literally have seen the special forces guys carrying them point down for a reason is they can grab, get up, stick. Minimal amount of problems. So if you ever see somebody and they're carrying a blade down, they know what they're doing. Okay. That's literally okay, we've tried it enough ways. We know the ways that it doesn't work. This is the way that it does work. So I'm probably going to do a knife blog on like all these various Fury knives that are like this model and like the smaller diminutive versions. Because there is actually like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's like about 5 different blade styles and sizes of this particular style of knife where they basically took a knife blank, and then pretty much just formed the handle around the blade. So, like I was telling, earlier, I don't know if you got it or not, Martina Sasquatch, but essentially what it is there's polymer that's been squirted into around the blade. There's probably like, little holes in it. There's no way I can really look at this unless I do destruction testing. So, literally what it is probably holes in the metal It probably goes down into the handle a ways, and they literally squirted the polymer in and around the knife blank to make this knife one component. Is it something that's going to be absolutely positively as strong as you've ever encountered? Probably not. But also, there's a reason why they don't make these anymore. Probably because they've gone out of fashion, and probably mostly because the guys that were making them back in the heyday, they don't make them anymore. Okay, so now they are now rarefied collectible items. And when you do encounter them, they either go really, really, really ridiculous. Like I showed that one guy was selling it on eBay for $550. Let's just say I didn't spend $550 to get this one. Okay, that is borderline ridiculous. All right, I would never spend that kind of money for something unless it was like really like one of the most rare, like Almars, or just something that's so obscure that you can't find it anywhere else in any other reference or any other parlance they're in. And yes, there is some actual knives I do have in my collection that is really just so esoteric that really I've only heard like minor mentions of them. And the only fact that I maybe saw a picture of them once before and heard about them, I was like, oh yeah, I better jump on that fast. And as soon as I jump on it, it's like maybe like another one pops up on eBay, and then that price just goes stratospheric. So being involved as well involved in the knife industry, uh, collaterally as I was, and being a major collector as I was back in the day to current, let's just say it's never too late to have a happy childhood, because the stuff I couldn't afford back then, I get now. But then the problem is, because somebody goes, "Oh yeah, what's this from back in the heyday?" I now can charge an absolute premium. Um, Looking in the room, I see I got Martina Sasquatch and Patriot Fever, so I appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. No, Martina Sasquatch, no, you didn't miss much. Okay. Um, the Patriot Fever says, when it comes to Sharpie pointy things, more of a kukri buoy full tang Patriot. Well, the thing is, most of your kukris that you encounter, like the Pakistani, or like the actual ones made by like the Gurkha style, they're not full tang. They're actually a rat tail, kind of looks like a file, and then they stick that into the horn. There is a full tang version. Usually those are like the really long ceremonial blades, are the ones that basically use for lopping heads off of like cattle and whatnot. Those are the guys that usually full tang. PFI two, enjoy, own a slippery boomerang. Wow. Um, Martina Sasquatch, unwise to carry a push dagger blade in the backpack, like Barnes from Platoon, or is that safe? Uh, well, the biggest problem with a push dagger is it is a single purpose item. It really doesn't do a whole bunch of other things well. It really is kind of more of a punch or slash, and that's really all it's good for. It's really the biggest thing I can say about a push dagger is your means of employment. You reach down, it's like grabbing a pistol out of a pistol holster. You pull it up, you got it. It's indexed. If you do index it correctly, it's between your middle fingers, and you're thus appropriately applying it. So the push dagger, while it has some major limitations, it does have that going for it. In terms of actual kata, you're kind of more like, okay, you basically have now traded punching and hard impact for stabbing and slashing, but the mechanization on that is actually kind of strange as well, because you're not using your wrist and potentially getting some extra ink out of it where you could snap into it and get more impetus. You're using gross motions. Now, I guarantee you, if you were like, cuddled up with somebody and you're doing a hacky, hacky, sticky, sticky, yeah, things would not be very, very good for them at all. Because once you get close but personal, it's very, very easy to just, go jailhouse on them. Okay. Patriot Fever. I'm going to leave that one in the room, dude. So it's the right side of my chest in case meth heads in the dark. Okay, well, the biggest thing is something that you practice with and you're comfortable with. That is the major thing. Always is going to be muscle memory. I know for a fact I could grab a knife, and if it's indexed correctly, I'm into them. Okay, it's just so much practice and time in. I know a knife simply by feel and what I'm going to do with it. And also that whole thing about like, edge pointing up. If you're engaging somebody and you're slashing at them and you're doing power strokes, mechanization therein, it's different. Unless you're the sound guy imitating Arnold. I don't think he does Arnold. Um, CRKT folder and right pocket for slashing. Well, folders also have the secondary issue therein of course, because they're folders, you also potentially have a chance of making them on lock. And I actually have made this one unlock before by striking it on something or trying to snap it open real fast, and it didn't open all the way correctly. And this one, of course, being a Spyderco Police. Now, in terms of the way it feels, it is actually a really pretty big folding pocket knife. I mean, literally, it's the better part of almost 4-inch blade. It is absolutely you know brutal to get slashed by with the Spyderco serrations and partial edge, which I have touched up, so it is actually pretty sharp. In terms of actually point of entry, it's going in. Now, in terms of actual employment they're in, is it really fast? No, it really isn't. It's to me, the lock is kind of not. It's just not all there. I mean, that's see case in point. It just did not employ and latch. So the lock is it's not fast enough in my humble opinion. Now, I absolutely the other thing too is they really truly intend for you to just use the thumb stud. That's Mr. 10 millimeter hole, which it was truly designed for. However, if I'm in a bad situation and I need quick employment, I'd rather a knife that I can pop open reliably. And I did actually slow that down. Now, the other thing too is also which knife are you employing? Let me see if I can't find it real fast. Yeah, here we go. This one, of course, being a Gerber Parabellum. Every, every, every time I've picked this up, I've been able to snap it open. Every, every time. Now, the other thing too is also this one is a bolt on top of the blade indexing. That's literally how it latches. There's a rod that literally slides out and it locks it on top of the blade. Also, notice this is a spear point semi. It's basically a drop point, but it is big. I mean, you can make a wound channel with this thing. This is going to feel a whole hell of a lot less fun than this. Mostly because just sheer size. I mean, you're talking like almost half again the blade width. It's not going to be fun. Conversely, this one, of course, being a very good utilitarian blade. I have several of these, with one, of course, is my user, because it's missing the cloyones. So I don't mind picking this one up and playing with it. Obviously, it's seen use. Now, the other thing too is also the design on this one. I didn't really intend this to be a knife show so much, but I'm playing with them, so I'm going to go do that. The other thing that's nice about this one is if you look at the basic design, I mean, you do have a way to lock your fingers on board, but you're not locked in with just one grip. You can actually switch it up. You can hammer fist this thing. And also, you're not going to override because you have that very prominent guard. You will stop. The only downside is on these guys, they're now kind of collectible. So, I really, really, really wish that somebody would say, "Hey, this is such a cool ass design. We're going to keep making it." Kind of like when Bear MGC was making all the cool Blackie Collins stuff, and they were like, "Okay, Gerber's not making them anymore. Gerber doesn't care if Blackie takes the design to somewhere else, and he brings his design to somewhere else." So that's kind of cool too. Is sometimes a knife company picks up the slack and says, "Okay, this guy's got a really, really badass design. We're just going to keep making it." That said, I don't know if the Bear MGC metallurgy is nearly as good as the Gerber stuff, or if the Gerber stuff might be slightly more brittle than the MGC stuff. To me, I've always thought Gerber blades, while cool design, I always thought their blades were a little bit too brittle. They're a little too hardened, and they didn't take stress so much. And I'm talking mostly about like the Mark II, the Mark One, the Guardians. All those double-edged daggers that they put out, where literally I can show you exactly how they were made too.